I just watched Contact, directed by Robert Zemeckis and starring Jodie Foster and Matthew McConaughey. It starts off very slowly. It explains a little bit of Jodie Foster as her life as a young girl and what she was going through. It constantly pushes for this dramatic tension in Jodie Foster's character. It works out most of the time, but occasionally it kind of feels like the movie's just tugging on your heartstrings a little bit, and it gets a little, it's a little overdone, especially with the soundtrack, which is just a very sappy musical score, like piano keys, and it just comes off as quite corny, a lot of the scenes. I also felt that Jodie Foster and Matthew McConaughey, although they're both good actors and did a good job in the film, their characters had a love interest relationship thing going on that just really didn't work, and it felt very forced. They could have easily had Matthew McConaughey providing the same role and the same exact amount of support to the story without the love stuff, because it was just a waste of time, frankly, and it was meandering about with that kind of stuff too much, especially since the two characters really don't see each other that often. William Fichtner, by the way, also, who plays Kent Clark, a blind CETI scientist, does a really good job, and he's a very likable character, and you totally buy the relationship between his character and Jodie Foster's character as Dr. Eleanor. But, I mean, the premise of the film is cool. It does a good job of building tension when they first make contact. It was really exciting. It had me interested. It wasn't blatant about it. It has definitely an ending I think a lot of people will find controversial. It's pretty bizarre, but I think overall it's unique and cool, even if it's a short final act. The last 50 minutes of the film are really cool. It had me on the edge of my seat. Some problems with Jodie Foster's performance towards the end. Her performance was good, but sometimes it was forced. It looked like she was constantly about to have a total mental breakdown. She didn't really stand up for herself as a character, which was kind of annoying. The cinematography is good, if a little bit bland. Zemeckis messes around a lot with panning shots, like panning up above a suburban home and explaining, explaining things in a very children's storytelling manner. But this is only in a few scenes. The main reason for that, to me, is really just because of the soundtrack. The soundtrack just kept reminding me of this kind of like romantic comedy kind of soundtrack almost, even though the material being shown was totally serious, and I understood that, and it did have good dramatic depth and so on. It was just literally the soundtrack just threw me off, and the soundtrack is very important to a film, so I feel it's important to mention. But one thing I loved, by the way, was the opening scene in this film. It was so well done because it explained how Ellie's character was feeling throughout the movie just by showing that first scene where it's just panning out from beginning from Earth and it goes out into space and other galaxies, and it's just incredible, and it just made you realize, like, wow, we're so tiny, which I think right there it hit the nail on the head, because that's what Ellie's character is all about, is just trying to find something out there that's something else out there, because she acknowledges just how vast the universe is and how insignificant we are as the human race. And I thought that was really cool and smart. The movie's about a high rental. I would give it a 7 out of 10. I had a good time with it. It had me rolling my eyes in a few parts with corny dialogue and a forced chemistry between McConaughey and Foster. Other than that and the soundtrack, it was an enjoyable movie with a very interesting premise, to say the least. 7 out of 10.